I think that's
Yeah.
enough of that chapter. I think you and I have done our time with it.
I know. This was one of those chapters, like, I got home today, I was like, "Man, it's been a long fucking week, I'm exhausted, at least I get to read some Percy Jackson," and as I was reading it, I was just like, "God damn it." I know.
Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going into uncharted waters as we explore the monstrous mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Book 2, The Sea of Monsters. Chapter 5, I Get a New Cabin Mate. I don't know how to start this one. I feel
I
like I'm
know.
starting immediately, and I'm like, kind of a meh title for kind of a meh chapter.
I agree. I'm glad that we both stutter started to begin, because I also don't really know where I should start with my line of thoughts. The first thing that comes to mind is that overall, I'm very disappointed with this chapter, which I know we had discussed this. This chapter was supposed to be the breather because it
Mhm.
had been 4 chapters of just nonstop stuff. I loved that though. If it hadn't been made abundantly clear through my commentary, I was having a blast.
Oh, yeah.
And
We were eating
this
good.
not just oh yeah, it was great. This not just grinds to a halt. This is the first chapter in this book where I'm like, wow, I almost don't want to continue right now. I finished this chapter and I was like, wow, that was boring. Yep, time to close it for the week.
Yeah, this to me, it had similar pacing to I Play Pinochle with a Horse from book 1,
Mhm.
which was, I think, potentially on both of our least favorite chapter lists for
Maybe.
book
It's
1.
been a minute.
It's been a minute, but I know I put that on my least favorite chapter list because it was genuinely just boring and filled with exposition. The
Mhm.
difference here is all the exposition is unnecessary and redundant.
Yeah. A lot of it is stuff that we, as people who have read the first book, already are incredibly well acquainted with, which maybe we shouldn't dock it points because, let's say, some kid in a fucking library is like, "Oh, what is this book?" and needs some context because they didn't read the first one. Is it necessary to lay out a bunch of shit that's already common knowledge to anybody who's read the first book? Maybe. I don't know. I'll toss that
Yeah.
to you. Do you feel like this is necessary just going over old stuff? Or is this unnecessary? Like, if somebody has read 5 chapters into this book and has refused to just pick up the book before it, that's on them.
Honestly, I struggle with this one too, because I know as a reader who likes to read series, I'm with you. I already know literally all of this shit. I don't need all of Camp Half-Blood described again and the lay of how the different cabins interact with one another presented to me again as well. It's just unnecessary. So I'm of the opinion that no, but I also very much do understand that it's not just about, hey, what kid might pick this up in their school's library. It's also about what kid was super excited, me, to read this
Mm,
book when it came out and hadn't read the previous one in a year.
yeah. Yep, that's a very good point. I was
And
thinking about
so,
that as you were saying, yeah.
but to that point, I'm going to specifically grab out something that I think works really well for this chapter because I think the rest of the chapter could have done more like that, or at some point starts to drag with the way it does this. And that's with lines like this one. On the surface, things didn't look all that different. The big house was still there with its blue gabled roof and its wraparound porch. The strawberry fields still baked in the sun, the same white columned Greek buildings were scattered around the valley. It's giving you a brief description. It's going to
Mhm.
go through, it talks about how each one represents the 12 Olympian gods, and then it turns to, but there was an air of danger now. You could tell something was wrong. Instead of playing volleyball in the sandpit, counselors and satyrs were stockpiling weapons in the tool shed. Dryads armed with bows and arrows talked nervously at the edge of the wood. The forest looked sickly. The grass in the meadow was pale yellow, and the fire marks on Half-Blood Hill stood out like ugly scars. Somebody had messed with my favorite place in the world, and I was not, well, a happy camper. That's really good to me. That's
Mhm.
setting the scene. It's letting us know a little bit about how Percy's feeling about it. It's establishing what camp looks like while also giving readers who've already read and understood what camp looked like from book one more of the important, here's the updates, right? If you didn't read book one, now you know that normally this place is a happy place where people play volleyball and instead they look like soldiers at war.
Yeah.
That to me is interesting. It's when we get to, and I'm gonna apologize in advance. This might be what made me dislike Tyson as a child. What's that? What's that? What's that? Shut up!
Now, all right, Connor, hold on. I'm making a big T right now, not only for timeout, but also for my boy Tyson. I thought he's not just saying, "What's that?" All right. There's a very, very minor detail that makes it endearing, and that's how it's spelled. It is spelled
Yeah.
out phonetically as "was that?" WHASTHAT. What's that? It's wonderful to him. This is all new. It's so mystical and magical. And that's funny. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. Tyson's just like, "What's that?" And Percy says, "That's the stable for Pegasi, the winged horses." "What's that?" Those are the toilets." "What's that?" "It's the cabins for the campers." Now, I feel like it drags a little bit. That could have been kind of just a funny little one-off joke of Tyson pointing out some stuff that actually is kinda cool, and then other stuff that's like, "Dog, that's the throw-up corner. That's where people go to throw up." But that is where it starts to drag a little bit and does what I honestly, I think I just realized. We have been praising this book for getting new readers up to speed while still keeping shit going. And this
Yeah.
is the chapter that just stops that. So I think you're 100% right, where it talks about, hey, this was the status quo. Here's like 4 or 5 lines talking about this was the status quo. If you didn't know it, now you do. Here's how it's changed. Here how it's updated. Here is how we're going to move the plot forward. And then the Tyson what's that thing is silly. All right. I'm a Tyson defender. So far, I'm a Tyson defender. That shit is funny. Where it gets irritating and belabors the point is not because Tyson is asking, "Was that?" It's because Rick writes out, "Was that? What is it?" He's explaining, "Was that?"
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's actually a very good point because I did actually mention that I found the toilets comment specifically funny. Those are toilets. That's good. That's quality Percy Jackson humor.
It is. And he's asking with the same amount of bewilderment as he just saw the flying horses.
Yeah. I really wanted to like the juxtaposition of Percy's first days walking around camp, totally not getting it and being like, "Well, what do you mean? My mom is Sally Jackson." And Annabeth having to
Mhm.
spell it out for me. And I do really like Percy getting to be in that position as he's like, "Yeah, those are Pegasi. We just have those here. We're going to
Mhm.
be talking about those later. Not today, a later
Oh,
episode."
damn it, you little tease, Connor.
I know. But I think it's when you start to get to the description of Chiron that it really feels like, do we need to be doing this again? Because at least for the stuff above it where they're talking about the pact of the big three pact had only been broken twice. Once when Zeus sired Thalia, once when Poseidon sired me. Neither of us should have been born. Sure, quick, but like even that feels like it really dragged on more than it needed to. Maybe I'm just a little harsh on this chapter. I feel weird being overly negative, but especially this beginning bit. As you said, we've had so much good, driving us forward, fun action that has been really enjoyable to read that it sticks out. And it sticks out in a not great way.
And I think what's a little bit disappointing too is that you and I have discussed that even in the last book, some of our least favorite chapters may have taken place in Camp Half-Blood. a lot of our praise is about how fucking awesome Camp Half-Blood is when Rick gets creative. We love spending time at Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
We like seeing the interactions between the different campers and the different cabins and the mythical creatures that live in the woods and the little everyday mundane magics that help this place operate. That's fun. So it feels very like, oh, we're back at Camp Half-Blood. Ooh, shit. It's really changed for the worst. It's gone from a safe place summer camp to a war zone that's under siege. And it's not interesting, which is so crazy. That feels like so difficult to not make this interesting.
I
But
think you're
it's
right.
just bland. And it's bland because we spend so much fucking time going over stuff we've already known about or could have been described in maybe like 2 sentences. And then we could keep it pushing. But this, I mean, it really fucks with the flow that the book had. I feel as though maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Just to recap, because I feel like we kinda jumped into it without saying officially that we were jumping into it.
We did, that's true.
Yes. So Percy is back at Camp Half-Blood, obviously. He's walking around, he's noticing all these different aspects of it, like you had said before. He says, "I do like this allusion, this parallel. Like, you come home after a long time, and it's very clear that somebody was in your room, and maybe they were trying to be, air quotes, helpful by cleaning stuff up, but it just feels weird. It feels kinda dirty, like, even dirtier than if it was just left how it was. It's just like, damn, somebody fucked with my personal space. This was supposed to be sacred, and now it's different in some ways that you might be able to notice, and other ways that are just totally vibes based. There's an aura that has changed,
Yeah.
a feeling that has been disrupted.
It's lost the whimsy. Like, if I'm trying to put my finger on it more than just vibes, Percy says that it reminds him of a military school.
Right.
And I think that actually sums it up well, in that it just has lost the magic, the fun that made Camp Half-Blood. And I understand that's the point. This is what we're gonna be fighting for in this book, is restoring Camp Half-Blood. But it does make this chapter feel a lot less interesting.
Mhm. But again, there's a way that you can do that with it still being interesting. I
Mhm.
digress. We have talked about that perhaps too much already at the start of this chapter. So we're gonna keep it pushing. Percy's
Indeed.
walking around. Tyson is just so amazed at everything he's seeing. I find it funny. Connor wants to kill him with a rock.
Yeah,
There
man, that's
is
what I said. Quote,
that's exactly what you said. There is one point where they're looking at the different cabins, and I do like that Percy's like, "Yeah, the cabins are for campers. They've got this one for Hermes, and that one's for Apollo, and then I've got my own cabin over there." And Tyson is just in awe. He's amazed. He says, "You have a cabin?" Which, coming from a guy who is homeless,
yeah, lived in a
like,
refrigerator box.
he's like, "Holy shit, shelter? And you have it all to yourself? That's amazing." Which is juxtaposed by Percy, who's like, "I hate my empty cabin. It feels very alone, and I feel very ostracized, and I feel very sad, and it's a constant reminder that I shouldn't exist." But Tyson's just like, "Man, you've got a roof and a bed? That's nuts!"
These walls aren't even made of cardboard.
No, seriously. It's like, this is
Yeah?
sturdy. I do think, and maybe this will change, Tyson is supposed to be here to rekindle and kind of reorient Percy's amazement with the life that he has. Because as we've talked about, Percy has gotten very stagnant, mainly because he keeps trying to impress upon himself a purely mortal life. But he's walking around and talking about stuff very nonchalantly, and it seems apparent that he has just gotten so used to this environment and kind of numb to it, that even if he's like, "This is my favorite place in the world," there's still that level of awe and wonder that has just dulled over time. And so I like the idea that Tyson is supposed to be like, I don't know if you've ever felt this, Connor. You live in a very cool place.
Mhm.
After a while, you just get used to living in a cool place. and then you have people visit, and you get to experience them experiencing it for the first time, and it kinda, like, reignites a bit of that excitement in you too.
I totally agree with that. That's actually something that my wife and I talk about a lot is how I'm honestly glad I didn't grow up around mountains because now every time I see them on the horizon, I'm like, "Wow, that is so cool." And I
Mhm.
would hate to lose that luster that they
Yeah.
have. I totally agree. And you know what?
Mhm.
I was being a little hard on that part. I think that Tyson as the juxtaposition to Percy's nonchalantness is really good, and I totally agree that you kinda need someone to bring Percy back to especially you mentioned status quo. If you're trying to get Percy back to some level of status quo, the status quo from book 1 was he knows nothing, he's surprised by everything, and
Yeah.
having someone who can get him back to that level of wonder, you're right, that's important, and it works well, because the fact that he doesn't have the heart to explain to Tyson why he doesn't like his cabin, I think does help to remind Percy that, yeah, you don't love your cabin, but as you said, this is your favorite place on earth, the one place where you feel like you belong. And to be so down and out about it isn't what you would want for Percy to have happen, and it's not as interesting to the reader. So I think you're very
Yeah.
much right in that, like, you have to make the cabin exciting again and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and we'll put a little tiny pin in that. The idea of the cabin being a point of excitement rather than a point of dread or despair. Because Percy says, like, there's an embarrassing truth about my life. I am not supposed to be alive. And that's where we
Mhm.
get the Pact of the Big Three and how after World War II, because all the big three demigods got a little too kooky crazy, they said no more kids. And then whoops, Zeus broke it, and then whoops, Poseidon broke it. And at this point, we have no idea if Hades broke it. Who's to say? And then we get reminded about Dahlia's pine tree. Da 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 da. Whatever. Basically, the point is he's like, this cabin is again a reminder of all the things that I hate about my godly aspects. A tiny little pin there that we will hopefully come back to if I don't forget at the end of the chapter.
I look forward to coming back to it.
Great.
So that does bring us to finally Percy arrives at the big house. We found Chiron in his apartment listening to his favorite 1960s lounge music while he packed his saddlebags. And this is where Percy goes, I guess I should mention, Chiron is a centaur. And this, again, I understand. It makes sense why they have to do this. Hey, if you didn't remember, this isn't generic old mentor. This is half horse generic old mentor. And so
Yep.
we get through that, and we do get another fun moment of Tyson. Pony! He cried in total rapture.
Yeah, he says a slur. I know he's ignorant. He doesn't realize it's a slur, but it most assuredly is.
Chiron's, I, I beg your pardon, is pretty good. Annabeth runs up, and here's a line that actually did take me aback, just because I don't think I'd really thought about how much that is the truth.
Mhm.
Percy says her voice was shaky. Chiron was like a second father to her. I had not considered that if Annabeth has been here from the time that she was, what was it, 8? 8 years old? No, she's been here 5 years when Percy got here, so she was 6 years old when she first
6 or
arrived?
7.
6 or 7? So for the last half a decade, he has been her only parental figure, because you know it wasn't fucking Dionysus.
Mhm.
So, for all the shit we give Chiron, I'll give him that. If the one good thing he's done is be a parental figure for Annabeth, that's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and maybe my hate for Chiron is just so blinding that I totally skipped over that line.
Yeah.
I I didn't even acknowledge it. That is a good one, though. I wish that maybe we saw more of that, because this feels like one of those things where it's like, "Okay, I mean, I guess. I guess we have to infer that." Or almost like if Percy would acknowledge, like, "I never really considered that before." Like, it makes
Mhm.
sense, but it's just not something that I've ever really internalized or thought too hard about.
Yeah. It feels like one of those things that, oh, we're in book 2, Rick's thought a little bit more about the backstory of this world and where things have been rather than just where they're going. And he put together, he's like, oh, wow, Annabeth has spent a lot of time specifically with this person. And if I'm going to remove this character from the novel for some period of time, it's probably important to address it in that way. I'm in the same place of like, I wish I'd seen more of it in book 1, but I did think that he did a good job of following that up with some description that made it seem to me like I could
Mhm,
see that relationship a little bit better as Chiron ruffles her hair, smiles at her, and says, "Hello, child," and then looks over at Percy and says, "And Percy, my goodness, you've grown over the year," which
mhm.
is very much the type of thing that a more parental figure would say, or at the very least in that case, a good family friend who you haven't seen in a while who's like, "Oh, wow, you're getting so big."
Yeah. Yep. But I'm not gonna lie, now that I'm older and I've gotten to the point where, like, I am starting to see children grow up, that shit's true, though. Like,
Mhm.
damn, you do get big really fast. Holy shit.
As Chiron is giving this sort of parental moment, now they're starting to address the elephant in the room. Chiron has been fired,
Yeah.
and that is not good, and we haven't gotten a reason yet either. So we start with, and I appreciate this, for once, he gives out the information without any questions. It is given without any circumstance for it, so to speak. He
Yeah,
says,
it's readily available. He
"Thank
says,
you, that's the
"Oh,
word I
a
was looking for."
question? Here's the answer."
Exactly,
It's
and
'cause
so
he's
he says
fired. He's not getting paid for it now.
he's
He's like,
not,
"Man,
not
fuck
getting
it."
paid to be an ass. It was part of the job description,
Exactly.
must be vague,
Mhm.
but he explains, "Someone had to take the blame. Lord Zeus was most upset. The tree he'd created from the spirit of his daughter poisoned. Mr. D had to punish someone." Percy growls, "Besides himself, you mean?" Which feels valid, maybe the partially omniscient deity should have known instead of just blaming the centaur that works there. Neither here nor there, I guess, at this point. He's already fired.
Yeah. Can't be undone, sorry.
We get a little bit of insight into more of Chiron's life outside of being the camp director, with things like stuffing his saddlebag with a Latin English dictionary, his boombox, which is oozing Frank Sinatra music.
Mhm.
And of course, throughout all of this, Tyson is still just going, "Pony?"
He's been patient.
He
He's
has.
been patient. He sat through a lot of boring shit that meant nothing to him. And to be fair, he was the first one to address Chiron, and he never got an answer on it
That's true, he
outside of
didn't.
"I beg your pardon." And we both know
And
Tyson doesn't know, what "I beg your pardon" means. He doesn't understand
no,
that.
that is well outside his realm of expertise, that's for sure.
Yeah. And Chiron very indignantly, because again, he has been called a slur twice in short order,
Yep.
he says, "My dear Cyclops, I am a centaur." So, that's resolved. That was
Yeah,
cool.
props, he's being respectful. He could
Yeah,
have been a lot ruder about that when someone was
he
being
could've.
rude to him.
Yeah. Percy, again, being good with asking questions like, "What about the tree? What happened to the tree?" And this is where we get our first little bit of intrigue.
Mhm.
Chiron, he shakes his head to let the audience know that he is sad and disapproves of the events. He says, "The poison used on Thalia's pine is something from the underworld, Percy. Some venom even I have never seen. It must have come from a monster quite deep in the pits of Tartarus." Which is, yeah, okay, interesting. Something legendary was
Yeah,
used
sure.
to poison the tree. Okay, we don't know exactly what it is, but if it's from Tartarus, it's powerful and scary.
I like that. You know what? Chiron's whole thing is supposed to be medicine, but if he's like, "Oh, even I don't know what it is." Sure, I'll take that.
I mean, that builds stakes. Like, the idea of the expert is a bit confounded by it.
Yeah. I
Go
would say
ahead,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
going to belabor this in a negative sense because actually I think it works really well here. Names have power.
Yeah, that
Percy
is
goes to say, "Then we know who's responsible." And Chiron cuts him off. He says, "Do not invoke the Titan Lord's name, Percy." especially not here, not now. And I like this because if there was one person's name that actually ever evoked something, the cold chill, that ominous feeling, whenever they said Kronos, that was what invoked it. And I
Yeah.
like that it feels like thus far, no names have power except this one. And I like
Mhm.
that by this point in the series, we've drilled that down and we've kind of figured that out. And it works really well here. I think it makes sense that Chiron has this legitimate fear, especially minor spoiler for the end of the book. Chiron is going to be talking about how, yeah, Percy, you do recognize who my dad is, right? And Percy's like, oh. And so it makes sense why Chiron is so afraid of Kronos in particular.
Mhm. That's actually exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna make a joke about names having power, and then I was like, "You know what? I feel like we've acquiesced that for Kronos, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So
I felt it worked really well here.
I'll let it slide." Yeah.
You know what I won't let slide?
What's that?
Chiron getting back to being his same old self.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say he was doing so good. He was doing
Mhm.
so good. And Percy, again, still doing great. This is actually the most logical I think he's been in the entire series when it comes to, like, solving a mystery.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, alright, I'm not gonna say his name, but, like, last summer, that fucking guy tried to cause a civil war in Olympus. This has to be him." And he'd get Luke to do it too, that traitor.
I'd be upset too. He did
I
try to
know.
kill him
I know.
more than once.
Chiron just goes, perhaps, but I fear I'm being held responsible because I did not prevent it and I cannot cure it." And okay, sure, I guess.
Uh,
And he says, "Oh," and I can just imagine he's fucking looking out the window stoically. "The tree only has a few weeks of life left. Unless, dot, 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 kill yourself. Literally die, bro.
I just
Oh,
wrote
there's
this.
nothing we could do except for this one thing, but no, oh, it's too dangerous. No. If only I were at a camp filled with heroes that are the only hope to save everything, but no, it's too much.
This fucking guy,
Literally
man.
fucking die."
Yeah. Annabeth, unless what? Please
I know.
continue. Chiron, no. A foolish thought. The whole valley is feeling the shock of the poison. So, I'm sorry, what you're saying is, no, the one thing that could solve this problem, that's a stupid thought. By the way, everything's
I
dying.
know. See, that's the thing that got me. Not only does he say, "No, it's too dangerous," he then triples down throughout the next page and a half talking about how fucking bad everything is.
Yeah.
He's like, "There's a solution to this legitimate existential threat, but I refuse to share what that solution is." Well, why? Because you guys could die. But won't we die if we don't do anything? Perhaps. Are you fucking
Uh,
stupid? Are you dumb, dude? Come on.
yeah, that didn't take long, did it?
I know, it really didn't. I was biting my tongue too, because you were like, it was actually kind of a good start. I was like, if Connor is fucking nice to this guy throughout the chapter,
Nope.
we're gonna have words. I wanted to sit back and see. I was gonna kind of follow, whatever vibe you were throwing out there.
Nah, man.
But
I
yeah, no,
counted the
he's
number of pages that this guy got before he pissed me off, and it was 2. He got
it was
2
2
good
pages.
pages in.
And just starts dropping just big old fucking horse shit diarrhea dookies all over the place. And
Yeah, man.
speaking of kill yourself, Chiron,
Oh, no.
he's like, "Oh, the camp will be overrun by monsters, but oh, there's nothing we could do. Don't be hasty. No hasty action, Percy. We need to be level-headed about this. Remember the Titan Lord. He almost got you." Which again, duh. He's trying to get all of you right now. We get some regurgitation of who Kronos is
Yep.
historically. And Percy's like, dude, he's internally. He's like, this guy, Kronos, he has to be the one doing the poisoning. And then he says something kind of fucking dumb. He says the poisoning had to be his doing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, that's an astute observation. And then he says, "Who else would be so low as to attack Thalia's tree? the only thing left of a hero who'd given her life to save her friends. Any monster.
Yeah.
Literally any fucking monster, Percy.
I gotta say, y'all probably smell like the inside of a monster donut to those monsters. They are just waiting
Dude,
outside the borders like, "I'm gonna eat those demigods."
I was gonna say, I can't even possibly start to think about who would want to ruin the safe place for all the demigods. Who would want to do that? Oh, take your fucking pick, dude. Take your
Yeah.
pick. The better question is who wouldn't want to do that?
There are at least 3 or 4 people you met last book who would be
Yes.
chomping at the bit.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, honestly, another fair guess potentially is like, oh shit, what if it's Echidna? Maybe Echidna did it. She's got crazy venom shit going
Yeah,
on with her chimera. But I guess then
Echidna.
Chiron would be like, "Oh, it's the poison from the chimera." But I don't know, Percy. It really isn't hard to think of all the horrible creatures that want literally you and the rest of your peers dead.
Yeah. And then we get, after this, some of where Chiron's incompetence actually is a good thing. And I'm not excusing it, but he looks to Annabeth and he says, "Stay with Percy. Keep him safe. The prophecy. Remember it." Should have been more specific. Should have said, "Keep him at camp. Stay here. Stay with Percy." That gives Percy all the range in the world.
Yeah, man. Whatever.
Hey, I like I said, I didn't say I was excusing anything for
Uh huh.
Chiron. Should have picked his
Yeah.
words more carefully. This is what he
Yeah.
gets for being vague.
I. We'll get to that in just a second. I really struggle with what he's doing with Annabeth right now, but again, we'll get to
Mhm.
that in literally just a moment. I jumped the gun with the "Speaking of Chiron, kill yourself" comment.
Oh?
This is when we learn Annabeth is like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll stay with Percy. I'll remember the prophecy." Percy's like, "Oh, is this that prophecy that people fucking refuse to tell me about, but is, like, super important and dangerous? Okay, cool. Just making sure we're on the same page." Annabeth goes, "Chiron, you told me the gods made you immortal only so long as you needed to train heroes. If they dismiss you from camp," which is implying like he's gonna die. He will die if he does not serve his purpose of training heroes. So like, yeah, I guess Chiron's on a bit of a timer right now. But instead of addressing that, instead of being a good father figure or mentor, he extorts Annabeth.
Yep, deflect.
This adult, this literal fucking immortal, or I guess immortal with an asterisk next to it, and role model is like grabbing Annabeth by the fucking shoulders and shaking her and saying, "You need to swear, you 12-year-old, you need to swear that you're gonna keep this other kid safe." And then he says, "Swear upon the river Styx," which is like, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
dude. That's reserved for the most important things, and I know some people are gonna say, "But this is important." Bitch, that is a child!
Is anything so important that it is worth trapping the immortal soul of a child on the binding of a swearing on the river Styx? Probably not. Probably
Uh,
not.
that's something an evil person would do, Connor.
Y Are you implying that Chiron is evil, Jack?
I think he's an idiot, and that, unfortunately, after a certain point, that ignorance does turn into malice, yes.
Yeah, that sounds like something we would say.
I read that and I said, "Holy shit," because it's a page turn, too. This is
Mhm.
the bottom of page 53 for me. Annabeth is, after just being like, "You're my dad," or whatever, it's like, "Oh my god, Chiron, you're gonna die." She basically just found out that he has cancer.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh my god, if they dismiss you from camp, turn the page. Swear you will do your best to keep Percy from danger. Swear upon the river Styx." And she's shaken by this.
Yeah.
Literally, it's written out. She stutters. I swear it upon the river Styx. And then thunder rumbles outside. And this fucking asshole, and then he backs off. He says, "Very well." And he seems to relax a little. Why would you relax? If anything, I'd be more nervous. You just effectively fucking quintupled the odds of damning Annabeth Chase to the fucking pits because she is
Yeah.
not going to be capable of keeping Percy safe. And I know there's the caveat. Do your best. Dude, come on. That
Yeah,
doesn't
no.
matter. She's a perfectionist. She is going to be losing sleep over this until she fucking dies or until the oath can be broken.
He literally just said, "You know that kid with a sparkler? You gotta keep him so safe while he's running around in this oil field."
Yeah, pretty
Like,
much. Not only that, but not only is it a kid with a sparkler, it's not even a sparkler, it's Roman candles. This is a child of the big 3. He's a fucking magnet for the worst things known to God and man. And yeah, I'm an Annabeth believer. I believe that she can do most anything she sets her mind to. She is also 12 or 13 years old, you fucking maniac.
oh, yeah. Well, and with that, obviously Annabeth is still very choked up about Chiron leaving. He's talking about how he's gonna go visit some of his wild kinsmen in the Everglades. But at this point, Annabeth has been barely holding it together.
Mhm.
But after he's like, I actually am leaving, and has just made her swear upon the river Styx, this is the thing that is finally gotten to her. Annabeth stifled a sob. And Chiron just pats her shoulder awkwardly. There now, child. I must entrust your safety to Mr. D and the new activities director, who we'll get to that probably more in the myth section. But Jack, please feel free to go off with whatever you know about Tantalus, as I know you have not done an immense amount of research on him for this. I gotta tell you, I don't know that I super trust that choice.
Yeah, man. A couple of things. One, Chiron says he's going to visit his kinsmen in the Everglades. When he says kinsmen, is he talking about other centaurs or are there other kin that he's visiting? Because
Nope,
I
it's
don't
other
think.
centaurs.
Okay, why the fuck are there horse people in the Everglades? That's like one of the worst places for them to be.
I agree. You would think that they would be like on beautiful plains in middle America or something.
The place where I'm pretty sure Percy saw them running while they were on the train.
That's crazy. That did not just happen one book ago specifically. No, no, no. They live in the Everglades now, and they're called the
They live
party
in
ponies.
swamp with a bunch of fucking alligators that are gonna bite their brittle legs and snap their ligaments with ease. Yeah, that's exactly where horse people should be. That just pissed me off. I was like, out of anywhere you could have picked, and you chose that place. The Everglades are, I'm sure, very magical. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there. I'm going down a hate hole right now, and I need to stop.
I get it. Here's what I'll say on that topic because I understand. I appreciate the characterization because centaurs are meant to be more wild spirits. And Rick has not gotten to do that with like the way he uses satyrs, because in his version
Mhm.
of how things work, satyrs, instead of being the revelrous attendants of Dionysus, are a bunch of old goats looking for Pan. So they're a bit more regimented. He doesn't have that outlet. So he uses the centaurs as his party ponies. And you know what? I do kind of find it funny that if you're going to make a race of nature spirits just be all about partying and stupidity, that you would put them in Florida.
That's true.
That being said, as much as the party ponies do fit on Miami Beach, yeah, is that where you expect to see horses? Not at all.
Mhm.
And is it a little bit just so that at the end of this book we can have the party ponies be vaguely within the vicinity? Absolutely, but we're not there yet, so it is what it is.
Ah, I
Mhm.
see. It
Yeah,
is plot important.
it is plot important. I'm just gonna again,
Mm,
I'm trying not to spoil anything too big for
yeah.
you because I know you're kind of enjoying your blind read. This is for plot reasons, and if it doesn't make sense, it's because he kinda probably was like, "Oh, I can make that work, and then it also benefits me when I get to the end of the novel."
That's kinda lazy. I don't like that. Rick, you're better than that, man.
I thought that you would have that opinion. And Jack, I know you just said that you were down a hate hole, and there's a big paragraph break after this with, like, a full blank line, so that'll be our space where we can stop and be done with this. But Percy says, I realized I'd forgotten to tell Chiron about my dream of Grover. Now it was too late. The best teacher I'd ever had was gone, maybe for good. Listen, man, I appreciate your confidence in Chiron. Best teacher you've ever had? I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure Luke, the guy who was actively trying to kill you, taught you more about swordplay than Chiron has taught you about anything.
Yeah, but also consider the fact that every teacher that Percy's had has been fucking terrible or outright tried to kill him. At least Chiron has only indirectly tried to kill him through his incompetence,
That's true.
you know? Which I
I
guess
mean,
is
Mrs.
marginally
Tesla also
better.
did that,
That's true.
right? That was her name, Mrs. Tesla. What was the name of that fuck ass science
Maybe, I
teacher?
don't know, probably.
Either
But Percy's
way,
not a science guy.
no.
He's not a science guy, he was bored. We also kinda jumped over it. I think you were drawing my attention there, but then I got distracted by horses in the Everglades. Chiron says, as Annabeth is fucking sobbing, he pats
Yeah.
her. Again, literally pats her awkwardly, doesn't embrace her, anything. He says, "There now, child. I must entrust your safety to Mr. D and the new activities director. We must hope dot dot dot. Well, perhaps they won't destroy the camp quite as quickly as I fear." Which, like, Chiron, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You have nothing of actual use to provide. In fact, the only thing of fucking benefit you do have to provide, you refuse to say.
Yeah, man.
You have nothing. I would have much rather he been like, Percy, Annabeth, things are really fucking bad. Tantalus is going to run this place into the ground, and Mr. D is looking for an excuse to have this place not exist anymore. Like, be vigilant, be on guard. And it would have
Yeah.
been very interesting if it was a dynamic. Granted, it would be putting a lot on these fucking kids again, and maybe I'd be complaining about it for different reasons. But if he was like, you guys are leaders in the eyes of the camp, and
Yeah.
the other leaders, the adults aren't going to help you right now. They can't. You guys need to bond and stand together in solidarity and help keep camp from falling apart because there's nobody coming to save you. That would have been interesting. That
I
also would
agree.
have built a lot on the kind of despondency and anguish that camp is feeling. And it
Mhm.
also would have made it a lot more interesting when Annabeth and Percy, I would assume, have to go on their quest. Because then
Mhm.
they'd say, well, fuck, we've also been entrusted with making sure camp doesn't fucking fall apart.
Yeah.
So what
And
do
that would
we
be
do?
very
Then
cool.
it is actually a matter of, well, if we leave, are we just damning camp anyways?
Yeah.
That's so much more interesting.
I agree. The nice thing is, and I'm sure we'll agree on this, I really enjoyed Percy's reaction to that, which is, "Who is this Tantalus guy anyway?" I demanded. "Where does he get off taking your job?"
Yeah, which couple things with that. One, yeah, that's funny. Two, Percy, you seriously don't have any semblance of an idea of who fucking Tantalus is? None. None.
None at all, he's
Dude,
never
you
heard of him.
listing off all sorts of fucking super niche names last book that you vaguely remembered from a test you took in Mr. Brunner/Chiron's class, and fucking Tantalus ironically slipped through your fingers? Really? It would have been funnier if he's like, "Tantalus, Tantalus, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. What's that guy do again? What is it? Oh, it's like right there. I can almost get it." If they played it off as a joke, that'd be one thing. No, Percy's just fucking brain dead for some reason. Here's the crazy thing. I got to a point, I'm like, maybe Percy isn't that brain dead. Now I'm back. This chapter is so not good. I'm back for it being like, damn, this guy is seaweed brains. Fuck.
Yeah, but that's where we'll leave that for now, because 'cause we're gonna get to Tantalus properly later,
Yes.
and we
Yeah, the
move
chapter is
toward
still fucking going. God, this
Yep.
chapter's so long.
We got 10 more pages to get
I
through, so I'm gonna pick
know.
up our pace a little bit.
Yep.
The sun begins to set, and they are now heading off toward the dining pavilion. Percy goes to lead his cabin, which is just him, and Annabeth goes and takes her place in line at the front of the Athena cabin's line because, quote, no one questioned her right to lead the line. It mentions how at this point she's gone from 5 to 6 beads. After hearing how Annabeth takes her place in the line, we also get to see some of the other cabin leaders, which is good. I like this. We get to see some of the characters we've already met, as well as some new ones. So It says, next came Clarice leading the Ares cabin. We know Clarice. That makes sense. Someone has apparently taped a piece of paper to her back that says, "You moo, girl." Which,
I don't
sure.
get. I don't
It's
get it.
because bulls. Bulls are cows. They moo. That's literally
Right.
it.
But what is the joke? I get it. Cow bull, she did stuff with the bull, whatever. What does "you moo girl" mean? Like, is that a pun?
I think it's maybe just be like, you go, girl. But instead, you moo. It's not a
That's
good joke.
not good.
Then we get the Hephaestus cabin, which were 6 guys led by Charles Beckendorf, a big 15-year-old African American kid. He had hands the size of catcher's mitts and a face that was hard and squinty from looking into a blacksmith's forge all day. Respect. Pour one out for Charles.
What?
Huh?
What? What do you mean pour one out for Char? What do you mean by that, man?
That's crazy. We're moving
That
on.
is nuts. Why would you say that?
I guess you're gonna find out.
I guess so. See, here's the thing. You're right. We are seeing more of these different cabin leadership roles, and maybe the book is going in this direction and I just don't realize it. But this feels like it should be the setup of, yeah, we are fucked and without proper leadership and protection. We need to take charge.
Mhm. Hey, man, I agree. That's a really cool direction that this chapter could have gone. Unfortunately, it didn't. So then the other cabins file in. We
Uh-huh.
don't get any more names or interesting people introduced. He mentions that from the meadow came a dozen satyrs who reminded me painfully of Grover. And I do think that's an important thing to remember throughout this chapter is one of the biggest differences between Percy's experience at camp this time and last time is Grover isn't there.
Yeah.
He went in last time with someone that was his best friend and knew that that guy's whole job was to keep him alive and was going to do whatever he needed to make sure he was included and safe. And obviously, he and Annabeth, they are right there. They're attached at the hip right now. They are obviously still going to be working together. But that doesn't, I think, remove the absence of Grover because Grover provides something different from Annabeth. Annabeth is logical, Grover feels things.
Mhm.
After the satyrs file in, the Hermes cabin brings up the rear, the largest cabin we're reminded of. Percy reminds us as well that last summer it had been led by Luke, but this time it is led by Travis and Connor Stoll, who weren't twins but looked so much alike that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And with
I don't know who Mrs. Stoll was. Do we ever find out who that is or no?
nope,
Nope. Whoever she was, man, she had Hermes coming back for seconds. That's crazy.
that is crazy. I guess it must have been fun.
I guess so. He's like, "You know what? I get around. I gotta stop back here again." That that Stoll lady is just whoo, woo.
He was delivering a package. He walked past the front door and he just
Oh, he
turned
was
his eyes.
delivering
He
a
was like,
package already.
mm. All right.
I know it was low hanging fruit.
No, it was good. It was pretty good.
I do
And
like that Percy mentions just outright, he lampshades it. He's like, it is kind of funny that kids that are the child of the god of thieves, their last name is Stoll. And I like that he explained that to them and they apparently just don't get it. They look at him blankly. And he's like, because Stoll.
I
And they just
like
kind
to
of cock their head.
imagine they absolutely get it.
Oh,
And they are the
100%.
ones who are in on the joke. And the joke is that they always look at people like, are you crazy? Is this some sort of
Yeah,
insult?
I'm
And
sure.
that
Yeah, they
to
get
them
it
is the
all
funny
the
part.
time. They
Yep.
get it all the time, and they're like, "We're just gonna fuck with them. We're gonna make them think about it more than we have to think about it."
Yeah. And then we get some racism. Really cool. People point at Tyson and they go, who invited that?
Yeah, Apollo
Wow.
table.
Will, you gotta chill over there. God damn, Solus.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that that was Will Solus. Please, that is a joke. I know Will Solus has his defenders.
It's just some casual fair weather monster racism, and I like this entire next section, this entire encounter.
Mhm.
I would like to just point out, and I will probably continue to point out, that this is all happening in front of everybody. Everybody's just silently a bystander for this,
Mhm.
which is so silly. It's just very kooky. It's like they walk in, they say, "Who invited that?" And Percy glares over, trying to figure out who'd spoken, but he can't find who. And then from the head table, there's a familiar drawl. Well, well, if it isn't Peter Johnson, my millennium is complete. Which, who else could it be but Mr. D? And
Mhm.
Percy, in vain, grits his teeth and says, "Percy Jackson, sir." Mr. D sips his Diet Coke. Yes, well, as you young people say these days, whatever.
God, I
And
love this guy.
he's great. He's great. I'm glad that we're back. Glad that he's still his same usual asshole self.
Yep.
We get another brief reminder of what he looks like. He's an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic with leopard pattern Hawaiian shirt, walking shorts, tennis shoes, black socks, big old beer belly, blotchy red face. It's described as he's like a Las Vegas tourist who'd stayed up too late in the casinos. Yeah, all right, I got it. Mental picture, we got that. He's also, I totally missed this part. Behind him is a nervous looking satyr that is peeling grapes and feeding them to Mr. D. I didn't realize he was peeling the
I
grape.
thought that's where you were going with this whole thing. That this mangy drunkard who looks like not put together at all has this just he's a servant
Yeah.
feeding him grapes nervously as if he is fearful that Mr. D will turn around and accuse him of giving him the wrong grape and turn him into a smudge on the grass.
And
Like,
he totally would.
he would. But somehow that is not the worst person in that general vicinity. As Percy
Yeah.
also describes that standing next to him is a horribly thin man in a threadbare orange prisoner's jumpsuit. The number over his pocket read 0001, which I did find rather interesting.
I did too. I underlined that. Was
I went,
Tantalus really the first guy to be tortured like that? Really?
see, that was what I was thinking. And I'm hesitant to just definitively say that yes, he is, because I feel like no matter which way you cut it, there's gotta be somebody who did something worse than Tantalus in the like 10,000 years that humans existed
Well,
before the Greeks.
here's the thing though, it's not a matter of what's worse. I don't think it's a ranking system. It's who got there first. What is your designation?
Hmm.
In which case, that's outright wrong. I would think chronologically, the first one would have to be Prometheus, right?
Or like Kronos or any of the other Titans. Yeah. I was trying to
Kronos
think
is,
specifically of
at
mortals,
least in
though.
this, just bits and pieces. In terms of like kooky, highly clever, and ironic forms of damnation, I would think it'd be Prometheus. Maybe there's some justification for it. I feel like that number is wrong, and also it would be slightly more interesting if it wasn't number 1.
I agree. That's kind of where I fell. Is I wanted it to go one of two ways. Way number one was that the number is just not number one, and it's some insanely high number, and you're like, oh my god, the gods had been punishing humans for thousands of years.
Mhm.
Or it's number one, and I go look up Tantalus, and it's like, and for the first time ever, the gods came up with a custom punishment for this dickhead right here. Unfortunately, Pseudo Apollodorus never had the word dickhead in his vocabulary, and if he did,
Mm.
he wouldn't have used it this time.
Yeah.
But now we've introduced Tantalus. Whether we know it yet or not, Dionysus looks over and says, "This boy, you need to what? Poseidon's child, you know?" And the prisoner goes, "Ah, that one." And Percy's like, his tone made it obvious that he and Dionysus had already discussed me at length.
Yeah.
Never a good sign. Never a
Not a
good
good
sign
sign
when the
at
teacher
all.
hears your name and goes, "Oh, that's you."
Yeah. No, that's exactly the vibes. Doubly bad because Tantalus is fucking insane.
Yep.
Percy can see it. He lives in New York City. He can spot crazy, like, immediately. And he's looking, he's like, man, he's got dirt under his fingernails. He's got blue bags under his eyes. His gray hair is cut like it had been done with a weed whacker. And his eyes made me nervous. He looked fractured, angry and frustrated and hungry all at the same time. Which all that together perfect guy to watch a bunch of kids. In fact, put him in Congress.
Oh
Like,
god. Yeah, yeah, that sounds
uh-huh,
like modern America, baby.
sure is.
Yeah, he's a choice to have lead camp. But hey, so's Dionysus, who snaps his fingers after saying, "And you, Perseus," or rather, Tantalus says, "And you, Perseus Jackson, I do expect you to refrain from causing any more trouble." And as Perseus like, "Trouble?" Dionysus snaps his fingers and produces the front page of today's New York Post. There was his yearbook photo from Merriweather Prep and a headline that he can't quite make out with his dyslexia, but he guesses says something along the lines of 13-year-old lunatic torches gymnasium. Which,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that wasn't his fault. That's crazy. Why does Percy get blamed for everything?
See,
Except for
that's
the
the
cannon
thing.
thing. That was his fault.
That's true. In the Shark Tank, there are a lot of stuff that are directly his fault, but that was not. I know that, or at least I have to assume, that Mr. D and Tantalus are only doing this to get under Percy's skin because, like, they might be stupid, but they're not idiots. Like, yeah, he's a fucking demigod. Of course, the fucking gym blew up, and it probably wasn't directly his fault. But fuck
Yeah.
him. Fuck this guy. Fuck
Yeah.
this 12-year-old.
Frustrating.
Or I
Nonetheless.
guess, sorry, 13-year-old. I need to update.
That's true. He is 13 now.
Wow. Exciting year.
I know. Moving on up in the world. And
Mhm.
then I found it very odd that Tantalus, as he licks his lips, he looks at one of the empty goblets that magically fills and he says, "Root beer, Bark's special stock, 1967." Which implies that presumably in the underworld, they've been updating the water that he's trying to drink with other beverages and telling him what they are just to make it worse. They're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, yeah, you're so desperately thirsty, you haven't had anything to drink in over 3,000 years. But just so you know, this, what you're smelling right now, this is Bark's special stock root beer, specifically from 1967.
and, like, yeah, maybe, but also he's never had it before. Like, he is not capable of tasting it, so why
Yeah,
is that the one that he'd be like, "I need this?"
exactly. You'd think he'd say something like, I don't know, honey wine, a vineyard, vintage,
Right.
1300 BC, or whatever.
Mhm.
I think he might have even been dead by then, but that's neither here nor there. As it were, Dionysus encourages him. He says, "Perhaps now it will work." And as Tantalus goes to grab for the glass, it scoots away in what honestly is a little bit of solid physical humor. I want this to be so good in the show because I feel like it works in the novel, but in a chapter where I've been as like, can we just move on for as much as I have in this one? It's okay.
Mhm.
I think they could make this genuinely super funny if they just play it off as like a background physical gag in the show. Like in every
Mhm.
scene Antilus is in, he's just always trying to grab at something that's jumping up and out of his way.
Uh-huh. He's like a
Especially if
fucking
they
cat. He's like a cat on the prowl.
exactly. And
Uh-huh.
I was just gonna say, especially if they do it in scenes where you wouldn't expect it. So not like this one, like obviously they should do in this one, but any scene that he's in where he's not even supposed to be near food, he's just reaching for something and then
Mhm.
frustratingly returning to the conversation. He's just like, "Didn't get it. I'll get it next time."
Yeah, I like that this little section. I thought it was cute. I
Yeah.
do like he describes stuff in a way that I'm like, "Ah, that's cartoonish," but I can picture it very clearly. The glass scoo it's almost like he's a magnet. He's
Mhm.
literally repelling all of this
Yeah.
stuff. Few, drops of root beer that spills because the glass scoots away. He tries to dab them up with his fingers, but then the drops roll away like they're quicksilver,
That was a cool description. I
which is
enjoyed
neat.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he continues. He as Dionysus says, "I'm sure your curse will fade eventually." He says, "Eventually? Do you have any idea how dry one's throat gets after 3,000 years?" So, presumably, he lived before 1000 BC. I checked, and this guy is like 5 generations before the events of the Iliad and the Trojan War. So that
Mhm.
would put him like 1500 BC. This dude's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Percy finally remembers who he is as he says,
Uh-huh.
"You're that spirit from the Fields of Punishment." The one who stands in the lake with the fruit tree hanging over you, but you can't eat or drink. And Tantalus sneers, a real scholar, aren't you, boy?
Yeah, which, like, honestly, Tantalus, I know that you're a horrible, insane person. That's a very fair response. Again, Percy, what are you, fucking stupid? Yeah, of course it's Tantalus.
Yeah.
Like, of
My
course
name
that's who he
literally
is.
got used for the verb
Yes!
tantalize.
Yeah. And then he does
And
ask, which is a fair question, this
mhm.
follow-up. You know, he doesn't remember all the specifics. He's like, "Damn, you must have done something really horrible when you were alive." Percy internally is like, "I was mildly impressed." What was it?
Well, we'll learn. We'll find out. I'll be curious to find out if you already know, Jack, but we're not there yet.
I have a vague recollection maybe, but we'll see when we get to the myths. Unfortunately,
Fantastic.
it is not just straight up laid out for us. Tantalus just squints. As he's squinting, behind him, the satyrs are shaking their heads vigorously, like, "Stop, please stop it."
Don't push his buttons. Don't push his buttons. And
Yep.
clearly, he already has pushed the buttons because Tantalus then says something that pushed my buttons. I don't want any problems at my camp. Ooh, I didn't like that. I don't like the way like, I know you're not supposed to like the way Tantalus says my camp. That crossed a line. No, sir.
Yeah, and Percy points that out. He says, "Your camp already has problems, sir." And Dionysus sighs. Once again, as a reminder, this is happening in front of literally everybody. Everybody is fucking waiting.
Yeah, just watching.
Waiting and watching. Which, like, you know what? If I were another camper and seeing all this, I'd be like, "Sit the fuck down." Like, Jesus Christ, Percy, just take a fucking seat. We're hungry.
Shut up. We're hungry.
Literally. Can you guys can do this whole fucking song and dance on your own time? Can we at least fucking get started?
Yeah. But no, we've got one more thing to do, and that's we
Mhm.
have to decide what to do with the monster. As Percy says, come on, Tyson. Tantalus says, oh no, the monster stays here. Percy is like, what do you mean? The monster? His name is Tyson. Tyson saved the camp. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. Who gives a shit? Literally,
Yeah.
they're like, what a pity it would have been if camp had burned down.
Yeah.
These
And
fucking
Dionysus
guys.
snickers. I know. Yep, they're pretty bad. Not great.
Yep. Again, I kind of like Dionysus's indifference, and I know you're not supposed to like Tantalus. This fucking guy though. And
Yeah.
finally, we get to move on. Tantalus says, leave us while we decide this creature's fate. And Percy, trying to make Tyson feel a little better, says, hey, I'll be right over here, big guy. Don't worry. We'll find you a good place to sleep tonight. Tyson
Oh,
nods. And this killed me.
this
I
fucking
believe
gutted
you.
me.
You are my friend, which made me feel a whole lot guiltier. Percy he's been trying, and he's like, man, this guy, I just learned he's a Cyclops. Now everybody's fucking pissed at him. But he's my friend. He has defended me. I have defended him. He's the only person who I have talked to as a friend at school all year. And now he is being treated like a monster. And he walks
Mhm.
over, and I like this. He says, Poseidon, accept my offering, as he scrapes a part of his dinner into the flames, and he prays silently as well. Send me some help while you're at it, please.
Mhm.
And he goes over to his seat, and we are not going to learn what the outcome of that is for a little while. But Poseidon, he's listening, and I appreciate
Uh-huh.
that. It's those little details that are going to slowly reinforce the underpinned absent parent narrative in a
Mhm.
way that shows, hey, not all absent parents are malicious or cruel. Some of them are truly just removed by circumstance. And I like that even when Percy will get frustrated about that, he is inevitably going to realize, okay, that was Poseidon helping me
Mhm.
specifically. And I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, not to just go back, but fucking Tyson saying, "I believe you. You are my friend." That fucking killed me, dude.
oh, yeah.
I grabbed my chest. I said, "Oh, oh my god, I love you. How could I ever have hated you as a child? How?"
Yeah, I agree. But then we move on and we
Yeah.
start getting to the beginning of summer announcements, where Tantalus announces, oh, before he announces anything, by the way, of course, he has to mention, I hope to torture or interact with each and every one of you children. You all look good enough to. Yikes. That's
Yeah,
poignant choice of words for you.
it is. I do like that Dionysus claps politely, and then some of the satyrs also follow and half-heartedly applaud.
I also enjoy that that implies zero campers. Some satyrs half-hearted is zero campers.
Yeah. Oh, it's just dude, you could hear a fucking pin drop, I'm sure.
Mhm. And now some changes, Tantalus follows that with. We are reinstituting the chariot races. And you would think that this is the type of thing where he's like, yeah, everybody cheer, like this is exciting. And there's just murmurs breaking out around the tables. It says excitement, fear, disbelief. And as he says, now I know that these races were discontinued some years ago due to technical problems. And someone at the Apollo table calls out, 3 deaths and 26 mutilations.
Yeah, there's some collective trauma from the fucking medical cabin.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
3 people had to die before you stopped these? 3
Yeah, I mean,
children!
they could have all happened at the same time.
Still, man.
That is not out
3
of the question.
deaths of children and
I do
26 mutilations.
Yeah, I like the implication that it's like, yeah, these chariot races more dangerous than the rock wall that
Yeah,
has fucking rocks that crush you and lava that pours down for infinity and spikes.
yeah. It is insane that they're just like, "Yeah, casually, we did this, and we're gonna do it again, and no one's gonna stop it." Like, I understand Tantalus is evil, but my god, man.
Yeah, yeah, the Apollo cabin's like, yeah, a lot of people died and people were mutilated, a lot more were mutilated, and Tantalus just goes, "Yes, yes!" He's
Isn't
like
it wonderful?
he's pretty excited about that, and you know what? Tantalus, being a fucked up evil guy, he is giving a solid speech, like, he's persuasive, he's persuading me. He says, "I know that you will all join me in welcoming the return of this camp tradition. Golden laurels will go to the winning charioteers each month. Teams may register in the morning. The first race will be held in 3 days' time. We will release you from most of your regular activities to prepare your chariots and choose your horses. Oh, and did I mention, the victorious team's cabin will have no chores for the month in which they win." And now everybody rabble, 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 rabble. Explosion of excited conversation. That's huge. That's a big deal because chores at camp fucking suck.
Yeah.
They're they're literally god tier chores.
Mhm. And I love that you can influence a room full of children no matter what by saying, "You won't have to clean if you do it," and they're always like, "Yes, I'm in."
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting that the main reward outside of the golden laurels is them saying, "Oh, don't worry, we'll give you less responsibility." Which is immediately and surprisingly countered and objected by Clarice,
Yeah.
who
I
says,
mentioned that this really reinforced that this is the Clarice novel. Please continue.
"Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah." She says, "But sir," and I like Percy notices, she looks nervous, but she
Mhm.
stands up from the Aries table and speaks. Some people snicker at the sign on her back, the "You Moo girl," that makes no fucking sense. But whatever, she keeps talking. And she's like, "Hey, what about patrol duty? If we are forced to be relieved of everything we're doing to ready our chariots," and Tantalus immediately cuts her off. "Ah, the hero of the day! Brave Clarice, who single-handedly bested the bronze bulls." And this is, of course, to throw her off kilter. Clarice
Yep.
blinks and blushes. "I didn't." And modest, too. "Not to worry, my dear. This is a summer camp. We're here to enjoy ourselves, yes?" And Clarice, again, very duty driven, but the tree, and just a Tantalus, "And now," and just shoos her
Steamrolls
away.
her.
Yes,
Mhm.
steamrolls her, and her cabin mates pull her back into her seat, which is fucking crazy. But I just found that, again, this is another point in the direction, and I'm gonna try not to do, like, rewrites of this book. We're here to talk about what was written, not what could have been written. But this is just another example of how this chapter could have been a really, really good excuse to show that there are leaders in this camp that
Mhm.
understand the importance of duty and the responsibilities they have to this camp to make it work and last as long as possible.
Yeah.
And part of the obstacle that they're facing is not only, 2 adults, yeah, well, 1 god and 1 damned immortal spirit that don't give a fuck. One of them is actively maliciously trying to destroy camp.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
they're doing so with bread and circuses and things that the average kid would be like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, I don't wanna do chores."
Yeah.
Like, that's an uphill battle. Looking at not only kids, but your peers. You might be talking to some people that are older than you and being like, "No, we can't do that. I'm
Mhm.
sorry that I'm telling you you're not allowed to have fun. Somebody has to clean the stables.
Yeah.
Somebody has to patrol the border. Somebody needs to sharpen the weapons.
There are
Fun
people
is a
here.
luxury that we don't have time for right now, but we're fighting, so it's a luxury we can afford again."
Exactly. There are people here that recognize not just that Camp Half-Blood is the safe place for demigods, but what it represents for those demigods. It's not just the safe place, it's home. It is the
And
feeling of safety.
you know what, Connor? You know what?
What?
Rick could have saved Chiron by going this route where it's the camp leaders in the form of the campers banding
Mhm.
together. They could each be like, "Oh, well, Chiron taught me how to balance the activity sheet and how to take stock of the armory." And we could have all of these different instances of these peer leaders explaining how Chiron had taught them not only to be a hero in terms of, like, glory or valor, but how to be heroic in terms of being a leader.
Yeah,
And that's
the
an
small
example of,
things.
yeah, why the fuck would Percy have ever seen that? He was off doing his own stuff, but we could get more actual tangible examples of the impact that Chiron has had on this camp outside of just being told, "Yeah, he was the best teacher I ever had."
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and it would be a really good way to introduce some of the other characters that this chapter in particular is trying to introduce. Things like Connor and Travis Stoll, if you wanna give them a little bit more space. They were managing to produce supplies that campers needed for various things they were doing. Charles Beckendorf was still ensuring that all the weapons were in tip-top shape, and Clarice, for as much as Percy didn't like her, was still keeping the guard routine despite Tantalus's best efforts. That would have
Right.
been really cool.
I think that'd be really fucking neat, and it's just this is the first chapter where so far, because again, I've really enjoyed the first 4 chapters before
Mhm.
this,
Same.
of like I'm like, "This is just wasted potential." There's the bones of something really fucking cool here,
Mhm.
and it worries me a little bit that I'm gonna feel that way about the rest of the book. I hope I don't. I hope I don't, and I'm keeping an open mind, but this is a damning chapter.
It is a stark difference from where we've been. I'll definitely agree with that. But we then get to what I think is probably my favorite part of the chapter. And that is as Tantalus is discussing what they're going to do with this monster, this beast. And he's just being unbelievably cruel. He says, "Any suggestions to where such a beast should be kennelled?" He previously has looked at the Hermes cabin, and Travis and Connor are looking like, "No, we have 3 square feet per camper as it is. We are not taking in a Cyclops," which valid.
Yeah,
And
they have the best excuse, which is we literally do not have the space.
we literally don't have space. But then we get to the part that is my favorite, which is the response that Poseidon has to this. Because Percy is not going to appreciate it in this chapter,
Mhm.
but it is so important to setting up what this novel is all about. Tantalus is chiding, where should he be kennelled? And suddenly everyone gasps. Tantalus scoots away from Tyson in disbelief and surprise as a brilliant green light dazzles holographically above Tyson's head. One that Percy is quite familiar with, because last year it had been swirling over his head. a glowing green trident. He remembers Annabeth's words about how cyclopes are usually children of nature spirits and gods. Well, one god in particular, usually. And I really appreciated is perhaps better the word than enjoyed what Percy follows this up with in his monologue, his internal monologue. He says, being claimed was a rare event. Some campers waited in vain for it their whole lives. When I'd been claimed by Poseidon last summer, everyone had reverently knelt. But now they followed Tantalus's lead, and Tantalus roared with laughter. That first part, though, I think really drives home what the novels are about. Being claimed was a rare event. Some campers waited in vain for their whole lives, and it gets focused on a lot in book 1 and a lot less in book 2. So I'm glad we still get some little reminder of, hey, don't forget about this. The system is kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And Percy reflects on how cruel people can be. As they all laugh, Tantalus roars and says, I think we know where to put the beast now. I can see the family resemblance.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty fucked up. And it outright says everybody laughed except Annabeth
Mhm.
and like a couple of other of Percy's friends.
Yeah.
And maybe this is an implicit point in Chiron's favor. Because you're right, I do like the parallel between Percy being claimed and Tyson being claimed. If I'm misremembering, please correct me. But here it says everybody's following Tantalus' lead, and that's that he's laughing and
Mhm.
mocking. But when Percy was claimed, I'm pretty sure everybody followed Chiron's lead when Chiron made the announcement, all hail Perseus Jackson or whatever,
Yeah.
son of
Son
the
of
sea
insert
god,
Poseidon's 8 titles
Earthshaker,
here.
and father of horses.
Yep.
And then he knelt, and everybody
Mhm.
did so in kind. Again, maybe I'm misremembering that, but I
Nope.
guess that could be an example of Chiron led through grace and respect and decorum that I mean, of course, kids are gonna fucking follow the leader, right? For the most
Mhm.
part, they're gonna say, "Hey, that adult that's in a leadership position is doing something. I should probably follow what they're doing, especially if they're doing it with confidence." So that, as a concept, is kind of interesting, and again, maybe implicitly a point in Chiron's favor. Now, what really stuck out to me was the next part, and I feel like it really encapsulates the Percy Tyson dynamic, and it is also loosely gonna tie back to that little tiny pin that I put in there near
I'm
the
glad you
beginning of
remembered
the
it.
episode.
Good. Good,
I
good,
did.
good.
And it's that everybody's laughing, and Percy looks over at Tyson, and he says, Tyson didn't seem to notice. He was too mystified, trying to swap the glowing trident that was now fading over his head. He was too innocent to understand how much they were making fun of him, how cruel people were. But I got it. And again, this is a loose, tiny pen. But the idea of Percy viewing the cabin as a reminder of how he's a mistake and all the parts that he hates about himself and hates about his father. Whereas Tyson, I inferred, was just like, holy shit, dude, you have a shelter? You have a cabin? That's awesome. That's amazing. And how, in this instance, Tyson is being actively laughed at and mocked, but he's just mystified by what's happening and is not paying any mind to the haters at all. Whether or not he's cognitively able to do that, notwithstanding, I feel like it's an interesting foil to Percy, who is keenly aware of this stuff and lets it get to him way too fucking much. Is it warranted? Like, sure, but we've talked about it. Percy's fatal flaw is like wrath.
Mhm.
He is an angry, spiteful person that holds grudges. And Tyson, he's like a duck. He just lets that shit roll off his back. He's got bigger things to worry about. He is gonna be happy with what he's given, and he's gonna be thankful for the little things. And he's going to enjoy it every step of the way. He's gonna be mystified by the glowing little trident over his head, whether or not he understands the implications of it, and he's gonna be just in such awe and bewilderment that his best buddy Percy has his own cabin. And I would expect, because I don't remember what happens next, that Tyson is going to be fucking ecstatic that he now has a cabin as well with his best buddy and now his
Yeah.
brother.
I think you make a really good point that there is a juxtaposition there. And I think that also ties back to the point I was making about how not having Grover around really leaves a gap for Percy.
Mm.
And Percy, especially with the way he's been looking at this, and exactly to your point, how he's like kind of underwhelmed about his cabin and everything. Grover didn't have to do a lot of the, hey, you should be excited about this, because Percy was excited. And now Percy gets to see that, but Tyson's overexcitement is going to bring Percy back up. It's going to say, hey, for all of the everything that you were seeing around you that is bad, remember that there is this one bright spot of someone who is just happy to be here. Just like he was when he
Mhm.
first arrived. But with that, as the glowing trident floats over Tyson's head, shall we take a seat here at the dining pavilion? We can sit at your
Do it.
table.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you have got a spot at Cabin Six's table. Come on.
Well, he's the new camp director. I suppose we should do a little bit of research into Tantalus.
Now, Connor,
Now,
you wanted my guess as to, or like what I knew about Tantalus,
I
right?
do. I was about to say, I feel as though Tantalus is probably one of the most well-known obscure Greek mythological figures, due to the fact that his name is literally the etymological origin for the verb to tantalize, often used in like tantalizing. So hit me with what you already know, Jack. I'm genuinely very curious.
Yeah. So obviously I know about, his name is the origin for tantalize. I know that the concept of a Tantalian punishment is supposed to be when people are surrounded by like luxuries or really nice things, but they're not able to experience them. So that would be like personally, I would consider New York City to be a Tantalian punishment for many homeless people that live there. They're surrounded by a lot of wealth and just exorbitant luxury and have no means to really utilize them or be able to experience them. In terms of the actual myth underlying Tantalus, I know, like with many of these myths, there are multiple versions. The one that I am most keenly aware of, or at least the one that I remember from, learning it as a child, is that he stole ambrosia from the gods, or at least attempted to. Um,
Interesting. Cool.
I also know that there is another one, or at least I think there's another one, where his tale is one of like he fucked up hospitality because he tried to trick the gods into, like, eating his kid or something fucking insane.
All right. Cool, man. You've got about as much as I thought you would have, but you've got it in an interesting direction. So for me, I was also kind of aware of what Tantalus's punishment was and why he had it, but I always remembered the second version. And apparently, with how I would say struck I was by the horror of him serving one of his children to the gods, I often forgot about the other one, or perhaps never knew it. So I'm interested that you remembered that one first, and we'll get to why I think that's cool and interesting later. But I think with that, it's time to start moving properly into Tantalus's distinctive punishment. But just before we do that, I think it's also worth briefly discussing his parents. His mother is almost always the same, a mortal woman named Pluto. His father is almost always Zeus. This is attested by the works of Diodorus Siculus, Statium, Tacitus, and Pseudo-Hyginus, as well as many others. However, he's occasionally also the son of a mortal king named Tmolus. And according to ancient fragments of scholarly works discussing the works of Euripides, Euripides the playwright stated that Tantalus was the son of Tmolus and Pluto and Zeus, as in the Theseus situation, where the guy is both mortal from a royal lineage and from the divine royal lineage, so that you know he's a really big deal.
Mhm.
So that establishes for us why Tantalus is important. Look, put shortly, He's a son of Zeus. I feel like anytime we come across somebody, it's like, oh, and they were a son of Zeus. We're like, okay, so they were important,
Yeah,
right?
they're a big deal.
But now that we've gotten that out of the way and we understand why he's important, we can discuss his punishment. Because the eternal torture that he is so well known for, that we got a word from it, is what we're here to talk about. So the earliest reference to Tantalus that we have from any source comes to us unsurprisingly from the works of Homer, as so many mythological figures do. The reference comes from Book 11 of the Odyssey in particular, and in this book, Odysseus is recounting his tale to the nobles that have offered him a place to stay after he has escaped from the island of Calypso. Specifically, the story he tells in Book 11 takes place just after Odysseus has left the island of Circe, who has given him instructions to perform a ritual so that he can speak with the spirits of the dead and get information from the prophet Tiresias, who we discussed in chapter 7 when he was bopping snakes with his snake bopping stick, which became
Yes, of
Hermes
course.
Caduceus. Or, if you want to learn more about Odysseus' trip to the underworld, check out chapters 17 through 19 of Notes from the Oracle during the Lightning Thief to learn a whole bunch about the underworld. Nonetheless, Odysseus tells his hosts about how he sailed to a place where the barrier between the underworld and the land of the living is blurred. Having performed the ritual, he was not able to just speak with the dead, but to see into the underworld. And as Odysseus is finishing telling his story, ready to go to bed, he starts standing up. His hosts say, no, sit back down. Did you see anyone famous, though? And so he lists Heracles and Agamemnon, among others, and then describes being able to see a few individuals trapped in their tortures in the distance, including Tantalus. He tells them,
Then I saw Tantalus put to the torture. In a cool pond he stood, lapped round by water clear to the chin, and being athirst, he burned to slake his dry throat with drink, though drink he would not ever again. For when the old man put his lips down to the sheet of water, it vanished round his feet, gulped underground, and black mud baked there in a wind from hell. Boughs, too, drooped low above him, big with fruit, pear trees, pomegranates, brilliant apples, luscious figs, and olives ripe and dark. But if he stretched his hand for one, the wind under the dark sky tossed the bough beyond him.
thank you for that.
Of course.
So, I would imagine that this version from the Odyssey sounds pretty familiar to most people. Would you agree?
Yes, that is, I would say, the prototypical version of what people imagine.
You would think. So, I was very surprised to learn that this is apparently not the only version of the torture of Tantalus, but apparently, according to scholars, this was the less common version of his punishment among ancient Greeks.
Huh.
Yeah. One place we can see the story of Tantalus with a different version of his punishment is from Pindar's first Olympian ode from the 5th century BC. And we're going to be talking about this one a lot. It writes, "If indeed the watchers of Olympus ever honored a mortal man, that man was Tantalus. But he was not able to digest his great prosperity, and for his greed he gained an overpowering ruin, which the Father hung over him, a mighty stone. Always longing to cast it away from his head, he wanders far from the joy of festivity. He has this helpless life of never-ending labor, a fourth toil after 3 others, because he stole from the gods nectar and ambrosia, with which they had made him immortal, and gave them to his drinking companions. If any man expects that what he does escapes the notice of a god, he is wrong." The rest of Pindar's Olympian ode is actually about Tantalus' son Pelops, but we'll get to him later. First, we need to finish this discussion of Tantalus, which does also involve Pelops. So, we now are aware of the 2 versions of the punishment of Tantalus. The reason that the latter punishment with the rock is actually considered to be more common among ancient Greek people is for exactly that reason. It just appears in a lot more works. It's referenced by various surviving fragments, such as this one discussing Pindar's Olympian ode, where it states, "Alpheus and Alcmene say that a stone hung over Tantalus." How informative. Thankfully, the fragment also includes the quote from Alcmene, which reads, He sat, a wicked man, among pleasant things, upon a seat, rock o'erhung, thinking he saw, and seeing not. I like this one because it leads me into my next point, which is that it seems as though I am not the only one who is confused as to which version was correct. And this actually leads to some writers opting for both, such as this excerpt from our good friend, Pseudo-Apollodorus.
Yeah.
He writes, Tantalus is punished in Hades by having a stone impending over him. So there's our stone. By being perpetually in a lake and seeing his shoulders on either side, trees with fruit growing beside the lake. The water touches his jaws, but when he would take a draught of it, the water dries up. When he would partake of the fruits, the trees with the fruits are lifted by winds as high as the clouds. Some say that he is thus punished because he blabbed to men the mysteries of the gods, and because he attempted to share ambrosia with his fellows. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. We have
Yeah,
pretty
okay, hold on.
clearly...
I'm sorry, really quick. What is the rock for? It just lingers above him? That's it?
Yeah, he lingers above him, so he's constantly trying to get out of the way. That's what the thinking he saw and seeing not is about from the previous one.
I
The
see.
idea being he's
Okay.
always worried that the rock is going to fall on him.
Okay.
Hey man, I
That's
think it's a lot less cool than the other punishment.
yeah, that's
I
that's really
agree.
dumb. After a while, don't you think he'd just be like, "Huh, alright, I guess it's just there."
I gotta imagine that's why, by modern times, that is not the version that has survived.
Mhm.
But apparently, that's a really common version and appears genuinely far more frequently. And we'll come back to Pindar's Olympian Ode because it has a really interesting point as to why the punishment regarding the foods are not exactly correct. Like, obviously, what he has done is related to greed, and that makes sense. We'll get to it. So, the reason I say that now we're getting somewhere is because we have both established the punishment, or in some cases, punishments plural, that Tantalus was given for his misdeeds, but we've also begun to see a pattern emerging among those misdeeds. For me, it is not the one that I thought he was most well known for. He is being punished for stealing ambrosia from the gods. So, as we saw in those quotes, Pseudo-Apollodorus wrote, Some say that he is thus punished because he blabbed to men the mysteries of the gods, and because he attempted to share ambrosia with his fellows. Remember the quote from Pindar I read earlier? Well, it says
Mhm.
basically the same thing. He stole from the gods nectar and ambrosia, with which they had made him immortal, and gave them to his drinking companions. So, this guy, the gods liked him so much, son of Zeus, that they made him immortal. They said, Here is the food that you can eat to never die. And he said, you know who needs this? The
My
boys.
homies, when I eat, we all eat.
To be fair, as much as I joke, I would do the same
I
thing.
know you would. I was gonna say that. I was gonna be like, "Connor, you would be the guy with the rock hanging over his head because of
I
it." You'd be like,
would.
"Guys, check this shit out. It's so good."
And when you start to realize that what he did was steal from the gods, suddenly his extreme punishment is pretty unsurprising. The gods don't like when you steal from them. Looking at you, Prometheus. But, Jack, you know what I think there has been a significant lack of in this myth thus far?
Was that?
Cannibalism.
That's actually what I was thinking. I just didn't wanna say it and ruin the mood.
Well, in that case, let's get to the part that has cannibalism. Starting with
Finally.
the story of how Demeter took a big ol' bite of Tantalus' son, Pelops. So, this story is pretty straightforward. According to Pseudo-Hyginus' Fabulae, when Pelops, son of Tantalus and Dione, daughter of Atlas, had been slain and cut up by Tantalus at a feat of the gods, Demeter ate his arm. But he was given life again by the will of the gods when his other limbs were joined together as they had been. But the shoulder was not complete. Demeter fitted an ivory one in its place. So, there you go. Pretty straightforward. He chopped up his son and he fed him to the gods.
Makes sense.
Unfortunately, this doesn't actually explain why Tantalus served his son to the gods. And Frustratingly, I actually struggled to find a primary source that lists Tantalus's reasoning. Modern scholarly work does seem to agree with my memories from high school when I learned about this, but I do want to point out that I tend to pride myself on the accuracy of our mythology sections, specifically in that they are often based primarily, if not 100%, on ancient sources that allow me to give you the most direct experience of the myths. So therefore, I am stressing that this particular myth makes that difficult, since Tantalus' story is usually not the most important part of the story. Much more of the mythology we have is actually about his son Pelops and what he did in later parts of his life. Nonetheless, we're going to go with what the modern scholars tell us. And what they say is that all of the gods were invited to this feast. Tantalus brings them into his hall, and he is testing them, because Tantalus did not believe that the gods were omniscient. So, by feeding them his son, actively breaking all of the rules that the gods have, both rules of hosting as well as killing your family, we've talked, is a very bad thing. Just put them in a box and throw them out to sea. It's much better for the gods. Tantalus chops up Pelops and throws him in a soup, just to see if they actually know everything. And all the gods who are invited realize what Tantalus has done. That is all but one. Demeter, who is still full of grief for Persephone being taken to the underworld, does not notice and consumes the soup, which is made from Pelops' flesh, specifically his shoulder, which is why she is the one to replace his shoulder with an ivory one in its place. To return to our primary sources, we are going to specifically return to, as I mentioned, it has a lot of information for today, Pindar's Olympian Ode, as it is the earliest and most complete version that we have of the story of Pelops being eaten by the gods. Although, what we actually have is specifically why that isn't what happened. It writes, "When your father invited the gods to a very well-ordered banquet at his own dear Sipylus in return for the meals he had enjoyed, then it was that the god of the splendid trident seized you, his mind overcome with desire, and carried you away on his team of golden horses to the highest home of widely honored Zeus, to which, at a later time, Ganymede came also to perform the same service for Zeus. But when you disappeared, and people did not bring you back to your mother for all their searching, right away some envious neighbor whispered that they cut you limb from limb with a knife into the water's rolling boil over the fire, and among the tables at the last course they divided and ate your flesh. For me, it is impossible to call one of the blessed gods a glutton. I stand back from it. Often the lot of evil speakers is profitlessness." So, interestingly, what Pindar proposes as he writes this ode specifically to Pelops is that when Pelops was taken by Poseidon, that when the people looked up to Tantalus's great hall and they noticed that his son never returned, that he must have gotten him eaten by the gods. Clearly, what else could it
Mm,
have been?
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I mean, what else would it be? They had to have eaten him.
That's right.
But to round out this version and conveniently move us into our next topic, I'll leave you with this quote from Helen by Euripides, a play from the late 5th century BC, where Menelaus, a descendant of Pelops and Tantalus's, as well as Helen's husband, recounts, "O Pelops, who once held that chariot race contest with Oinamos over Pisa, if only when you were persuaded to make a banquet for the gods, you had left your life then, inside the gods, before you ever begot my father Atreus, to whom were born, from his marriage with Irope, Agamemnon, and myself, Menelaus, a famous pair." Basically, he laments ever having been born. We'll
Ah,
get to why
yeah.
that is
Tale as old as
later,
time.
especially among the Greeks, am I right?
Mhm.
But speaking of chariot races, we just had chariot races mentioned in this chapter. And since next chapter we're going to be preoccupied with something else, I figured we'd talk about chariot races in Greek mythology today. Specifically, with Pelops' big chariot race, which was just mentioned. So, I've belabored the point that Pindar's first Olympian ode is actually mostly about Pelops, the son of Tantalus, and it tells us the story of one of Pelops' most notable achievements, which is, after having been abducted by Poseidon, as punishment for the misdeeds of his father, Pelops is returned to the land of the mortals. It says, "The immortals sent the sun back again to the swift-doomed race of men. And when he blossomed with the stature of fair youth, and down darkened his cheek, he turned his thoughts to an available marriage, to win glorious Hippodamia from her father, the lord of Pisa." So, the story here is of Pelops courting Hippodamia, the daughter of one King Oinamos, which, while not mentioned by Pindar, begins with a prophecy. A prophecy that states that King Oinamos will be killed and usurped by his son-in-law. As such, he's been killing all the suitors that come to him for his daughter's hand in marriage. I'll begin again with a quote from Pindar. As Pelops goes to the Grey Sea, it writes, "He drew near to the Grey Sea, alone in the darkness, and called aloud on the deep-roaring god, skilled with the trident, and the god appeared to him close at hand. Pelops said to the god, 'If the loving gifts of Cyprian Aphrodite result in any gratitude, Poseidon, then restrain the bronze spear of Oinomus, and speed me in the swiftest chariot to Elis, and bring me to victory, for he has killed 13 suitors, and postpones the marriage of his daughter. Great danger does not take hold of a coward. Since all men are compelled to die, why should anyone sit, stewing an inglorious old age in the darkness, with no share of any fine deeds? As for me, on this contest, I will take my stand. May you grant a welcome achievement." So he spoke, and he did not touch on words that were unaccomplished. Honoring him, the god gave him a golden chariot and horses with untiring wings. So he says, "Hey, Poseidon, I know our love was real. We had those gifts from Aphrodite. Can I get some sick horses, though, so that I can go get this girl? I gotta do my heroic deeds."
Yeah. Hey, man. That makes sense.
It is also mentioned in here that Oinamos has already killed 13 suitors to postpone the marriage of his daughter.
Oh,
And while it is not mentioned in this version, other versions will say that he took their heads and posted them on spikes. Oh, I've got that later. We'll get there.
great.
I'm on top of it.
I can tell.
After that brief introduction, Pindar actually jumps straight to the end. Unsurprisingly, he writes, "He overcame the might of Oinamos and took the girl as his bride. She bore 6 sons, leaders of the people, eager for excellence." But since that leaves out the fun part, I went back and grabbed it. So, here is the full version with a mention of the oracle and all the stuff that happens in between from Pseudo-Polydorus' account. Pseudo-Apollodorus writes, "Pelops, after being slaughtered and boiled at the banquet of the gods, was fairer than ever when he came to life again, and on account of his surpassing beauty, he became a minion of Poseidon, who gave him a winged chariot such that even when it ran through the sea, the axles were not wet. Now Oinomus, the king of Pisa, had a daughter, Hippodamia, and whether it was that he loved her, as some say, or that he was warned by an oracle that he must die by the man that married her, no man got her to wife, for her father could not persuade her to cohabit with him, and her suitors were put by him to death." So we get the
Wow.
mention of the oracle.
Uh-huh. I was gonna say a lot of name drops there.
A lot of name drops there. And then we get a little bit of description about Oinamos. He had arms and horses given to him by Ares, and he offered up as a prize to the suitors the hand of his daughter. And each suitor was bound to take up Hippodamia on his own chariot and flee as far as the Isthmus of Corinth. And Oinomus straightway pursued him in full armor, and if he overtook him, he slew him. But if the suitor were not overtaken, he was to have Hippodamia to wife. And in this way, he slew many suitors, some say 12, and he cut off the heads of the suitors and nailed them to his house. So Pelops also came a-wooing, and when Hippodamia saw this beauty, she conceived a passion for him, and persuaded Myrtilus, son of Hermes, to help him, for Myrtilus was a charioteer to Oenomus. Accordingly, Myrtilus, being in love with her and wishing to gratify her, did not insert the linchpins into the boxes of the wheels, and thus caused Oenomus to lose the race, and to be entangled in the reins and dragged to death. According to some, he was killed by Pelops, and in dying he cursed Myrtilus, whose treachery he had discovered, praying that he might perish by the hand of Pelops. Pelops, therefore, got Hippodamia, and on his journey, in which he was accompanied by Myrtilus, he came to a certain place. He withdrew a little to fetch water for his wife, who was athirst, and in the meantime Myrtilus tried to rape her. But when Pelops learned that from her, he threw Myrtilus into the sea, called after him the Myrtoan Sea at Cape Geristus, and Myrtilus, as he was being thrown, uttered curses against the house of Pelops. When Pelops had reached the ocean and been cleansed by Hephaestus, he returned to Pisa in Elis, and succeeded to the kingdom of Oenomus, but not till he had subjugated what was formerly called Apia and Pelasgiotus, which he called Peloponnesus after himself. And so it seems that Pelops lived happily ever after in the region that to this day is still known as the Peloponnese.
Sometimes you read stuff and I'm like, that's beautiful. And then there are other times like that where I get lost about a quarter of the way through and I'm like, we're just going on a ride now.
Oh, yeah. Well, the important part for you to remember is that Pelops got cursed. While Pelops gets
Yeah,
to live his happily ever after, his lineage, they pretty much all meet horrible deaths and ruin.
damn, that sucks for them.
Remember Menelaus' last myth talking about how much he regrets having been born?
Yeah.
This would be that. The losing of his bride
Um,
Helen, Agamemnon being murdered upon his homecoming. These are the fates of those who are the descendants of Pelops.
Interesting.
But hey, Pelops got cleansed by Hephaestus, so he is A-OK,
So he's
baby.
chilling. He didn't think to pass that knowledge down. Be like,
Nope.
hey guys, just talk to Hephaestus, and for some fucking reason, you can cleanse you.
What's really fun, though, is that this actually isn't Pelops' only association with chariot races, though I should point out his other association is associated to this one, or perhaps a result. This is because Pelops is actually often credited with establishing, or sometimes re-establishing, depending on the version, the Olympic Games.
Oh,
In Yeah, it's pretty cool. In Pindar's Olympian Ode, he writes, "The fame of Pelops shines from afar in the races of the Olympic festivals, where there are contests for swiftness of foot and the bold heights of toiling strength. A victor throughout the rest of his life enjoys honeyed calm, so far as contests can bestow it." This line from Pausanias' travelogue from the 2nd century AD also confirms this, as he writes, "About a generation later than Endymion, Pelops held the Olympian Games in honor of Zeus in a more splendid manner than any of his predecessors." However, some versions give the credit to Pelops' great-grandson instead, someone you might recognize, as it writes, "Hercules marched on Elis, took the city, and having killed Augeas and his sons, he restored Phyleus and bestowed upon him the kingdom. He also celebrated the Olympian Games and founded an altar of Pelops and built 6 altars of the 12 gods." So, Hercules, not on Agamemnon's side, is the great-grandson of Pelops, making him just slightly more than half god.
yeah, yeah. Wait a minute. So that means he's the great great grandson of Tantalus.
Correct.
Interesting.
Who is himself a child of Zeus.
Uh huh.
So he doesn't have a lot, but he's got like that 9/16 kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Uh huh.
And so that is how the Olympics were founded. and a history of chariot racing, just a little bit, in Greek mythology. But I thought it didn't quite satisfy my need for why chariot racing was so popular in Greek culture and in Greek mythology on the whole. And while this is just one instance, we can see in Homer's Iliad, Book 23, where there is funeral games of chariot racing, among other games. But because it sums it up pretty well, I thought I would read this quote from Book 23 of the Iliad. This takes place just after they've made a funeral pyre for Patroclus at Achilles' behest, and after they've celebrated and mourned the life of Patroclus, now is time for the funeral games. Around the pyre they planted a ring of stone revetments, piled the loose earth high in a mount above the ring, and once they'd heaped the barrow, turned to leave. But Achilles held the armies on the spot. He had them sit in a great growing circle, now for funeral games, and brought from his ships the trophies for the contests: cauldrons and tripods, stallions, mules, and cattle with massive heads, women sashed and lovely, and gleaming gray iron. First, for the fastest charioteers, he set out glittering prizes: a woman to lead away, flawless, skilled in crafts, and a 2-eared tripod, 22 measures deep. All that for first prize. A tripod, by the way, I had to look this up because I had no idea what that is. It
Uh-huh.
is a cooking implement.
Interesting. Okay. So it's a tripod. It's got the 3 things and
Mm-hmm.
what are the ears?
Handles.
Okay.
Yep. 2 handles. That's it.
Thank you for looking that up because I was gonna ask.
I figured. It reads then, for the runner-up, he brought forth a mare, unbroken, 6 years old, with a mule foal in her womb. For the third, he produced a fine 4-measure cauldron, never scorched by flames, its sheen bright as new. And for the fourth, he set out 2 gold bars. For the fifth, untouched by fire as well, a good 2-handled jar. He rose up tall and challenged the Argives. Atrides, Achaeans at arms, let the games begin! Achilles' call rang out, and it brought the fastest drivers crowding forward. So, little bit of interest as to where chariot races appear in other places as funeral games, which was another one of their most prominent places in Greek culture. But that's all I have for myths today.
Huh.
Nothing too staggering.
I appreciate that your myths were there to help satiate my palate because this chapter, man, was really lacking. We had said before we started recording, like, I just didn't have any notes written down this time. I had stuff highlighted as a reminder of, okay, mention this, okay, mention that. But there was just so little substance to actually pull from it. And it's very disappointing. I am hopeful that this is just a little hiccup, a little misstep, and that it becomes a chapter that I can just forget about.
Mm-hmm.
But because I don't remember, like, anything else from this book, I don't know if that'll be the case. At the very least, with last book, I'm like, "Oh, this is a chapter I don't remember. At least I know there's some really good shit coming along the ways." This time, I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know if this is the start of something bad or not.
I'll be interested to see where we kind of fall because this is upon my reread in preparing for doing this series of the podcast. This is where I started to really turn the pages and be like, yep, 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 yep. Give me the good shit. I'm just here to plan out my myths and move on.
Mhm.
And I'll be interested to see where we land on next chapter specifically in comparison to this one. Because I think if this chapter is supposed to be I play pinochle with a horse, the next one I would imagine is kind of supposed to be our capture the flag stand-in. Don't
Mm,
let me say that in a way to get your hopes up, but more
right.
as to be like, that is our action chapter at Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah. Yep. Which, hey, I will not hold you to it being to the standard of capture the flag, but at the very least, you know what? You've given me a little something to look forward to. If that is the case, I could use a little bit of action, which is weird because again, I feel like I've really enjoyed in the first book some of those chapters that give some breathing room and let the characters really shine. I'm just man, they had there's such good bones here, man. There's such good bones.
There
I'm
really
hoping Rick
are.
really picks it up and runs with some of this stuff because right now, stinker, not good.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways, this chapter, as opposed to a lot of the other bridge chapters, what it's really missing is the characters that make it interesting.
Mhm.
You and I have talked about at length the 3rd chapter of The Lightning Thief, which is
Yeah,
Montauk,
Montauk.
which is very much a bridge chapter, but it's got Sally, you know?
Mhm.
Or thinking about my despised Poodle chapter. There's actually a really interesting and nuanced conversation that Percy has with Grover
Yeah.
to give that chapter levity is the wrong word, purpose, I think is more
Mhm.
accurate. It gives that chapter purpose. And outside of Tantalus establishing himself as a dickhead, this chapter feels like it's missing purpose
Yeah.
outside of just blunt setup. We need Chiron gone. We don't have a
Mhm.
plan for fixing the poison tree. Also, things at camp are bad and getting worse, and no one's doing guard duty. We need to set up all
Yeah.
of these little details, and instead of doing them in nuanced, interesting ways with characters that have character, we're just given Tantalus kicking around puppies for most of a chapter. And that's not to say that there weren't characters that could have been interesting. I think you pointed out a lot of ways in which these characters could have given us more to do and be aware of in this chapter, and unfortunately, we just didn't get that.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I guess the only way to find out if this is the start of a downward trend is to just get into it next time. So, without further ado, Connor, I've got nothing else.
All right, then I suppose we will just have to get to the next chapter where we can see just how much havoc Tantalus can wreak. We'll see you then.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please be sure to leave a review, share with your friend, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. I gotta be honest with you, I was really excited to record because I wanted to record. I
Mhm.
did forget that this was the chapter we were doing. I sat down, opened my book, and went, oh man.
I know. This is we had to get through it and we've been off the rhythm for recording a bit too. So at the very least, getting our fucking feet back in and hey, I'm coping. This chapter was not fun.
Yeah. Hey, good news, good news, good news.
Yes.
We should have an interesting, fun myth to talk about next week.
Mhm.
Um, you'll be able to tell by the title, so this is not a huge spoiler. We're going to be talking about the Stymphalian birds,
Okay.
which is a labor of Heracles, so those are always fun for me to talk about. I love talking
Yeah,
about Heracles.
you sure do.
Um, and then you know what? It's a chapter that starts with a good title. So it's got everything that this chapter didn't have, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said it, and I hate belaboring the point, but man, I'm nervous. I was so pleasantly surprised with everything, and then this chapter, I feel like just punched me in the chest and was like, "Nope, nope, no fun anymore. We're
Okay.
not doing fun."
We've had 4 chapters that have all felt like they've gone by in a snap, and then we
Mhm.
get this super long, super underwhelming chapter, and I think all those factors make it feel more and more oppressive, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like when you said it felt like it was pointless, maybe not pointless, but without direction or without
Mhm.
purpose. This feels like the chapter that it is most important for it to establish its purpose, and it just didn't do it well.
Doesn't. Mhm. It just falls short, I feel.
It really, really does. And again, there's so many things there as like concepts to run with that I feel like would be really neat. And weirdly, I think having Chiron gone is the best way to show his impact by, indicating how much of camp he did positively influence in ways that maybe Percy didn't recognize, and therefore, as the readers, we just didn't know about.
Yeah.
And
And
I mean, I
instead
guess we kinda got that. It's implied that because but it doesn't feel like it's because Chiron is gone. It feels like it's because Tantalus is there. That's the
yes.
difference.
That is the difference. I'll also go so far as to say that a lot of what we get is characters like Annabeth being like, "I'm so sad Chiron is gone," and even Clarice looking a little worried or sounding a little worried about it, but we don't actually see what those people are worried about. There's
Mhm.
never a moment where something happens and Annabeth goes, "Chiron never would have let this happen." And the reader goes, "Yeah, you're right, he wouldn't have, because Chiron's, like, totally in approval of the fucking climbing wall."
Yeah.
Like, if you just swapped everything that just happened with Chiron is very, what do we do about Tyson in a not dickish manner? And everyone still has to do their chores and like guard duty, but I am still reinstating the chariot races. You'd be like, yeah, that tracks. That sounds like something he would do.
Yep.
Like, down to the Apollo cabin being like, but Chiron, last time there was 3 deaths and 26 mutilations. He'd be like, it's fine. We're better now.
D
Like,
that is so true. Yeah.
and I think that's where it falls short, right? The biggest fuck you of this whole thing is supposed to be these horrible chariot races are coming back. Because as much as I hate to say it, Annabeth for the entire book so far has been blunt about how much she dislikes Tyson for the fact of him being a monster.
Mhm.
So, like, it's not even that surprising that Tantalus is like, ew, look at the gross Cyclops. Because it's like, yeah, man, one of the best characters in the book has been doing that all book.
Yeah. Yeah.
A thought.
I don't I don't know. It's so bland. It's so bland and milk toast, and it's in ways that I know that Rick can be better because 'cause we've seen it, and it was very, very disappointing, I think is probably the best way to put it. But there's just so much shit here, it's not like a total overhaul. It's just like little tweaks. Just a little tweak here and there, and this becomes, the best chapter,
Hey, man, maybe that's a YouTube video idea.
maybe.
How to improve Jack's least favorite chapter.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't turn into how would I rewrite the entire book. But, I mean, I don't know, maybe that would be interesting if I do
I'd
keep
watch
going
that.
on and being like, "Damn, this is kinda booty cheek."
Here's what I will say. Again, I'm genuinely interested to see where your opinions of the rest of the novel fall, especially now that you have the contrasting opinion of we went from the Graiai to this.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
I think this chapter's cardinal sin is that it's just fucking boring. It's just boring.
Yeah. Look, I wish I could like you missed this detail that's really good. I think the best parts of this chapter don't match up to the worst parts of the best chapters in book 1.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like I'm in saying that, I feel like I'm comparing a lot to book 1. Book 2 has been really good so far.
Yes!
Like, if you were to take all 27 chapters and put them on a tier list, those first 4 would score pretty well, I feel like. This
Yeah.
chapter might be number 27.
It's
Actually, I take that back. This chapter would be number 27.
yeah, I really think it would be, man. I will say, I do still enjoy Tyson. This chapter did endear me to him even more. So, I'll give it credit for that. I thought the stuff that Tyson did was either funny or I thought it was actually just gut-wrenching and heartbreaking because of how pure and kind-hearted he is.
Mhm. I
So
gotta
I'll give
say,
it
I
that.
was a little harsh at the beginning about his "what's that's?" I did
Yeah,
mean
what's
to
that?
jest that that was the only part that I didn't enjoy. Everything else about Tyson, I think really does work well in this chapter. Uh, dude, I keep eating our words, my words. He's a really at least so far, he's a really good character, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the role he serves in the novel.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
But,
Ugh.
oh well. I think that's enough
Yeah.
of that chapter.